What's up? What's up, guys? And welcome to another episode of the Powerhouse Mentality Podcast. I am your host. I'm Caitlin Kenna-Smith, and today I had an absolutely amazing conversation with Liz Lambert, Director of Coaches at Hidden Summit, but of course, she's much more than that. She's a mom of two, a wife, crossfitter, and overall badass. And I attribute so much to this woman, and I'm honored to be able to have her on the podcast. We dive into how Liz first got into fitness through her own journey to break the genetic mold, how she broke the cycle of the typical 9-to-5 stable job in order to become a coach and really live her passion, and how she was able to completely transform her mindset over the course of the last decade. We also actually get into her experience as a parent, all of the challenges she's faced and overcome there, the importance of being the example her kids need, and how she's able to reduce or eliminate the feeling of guilt as a parent when she's giving time to her own health. Now, this one was an incredibly valuable conversation. I mean, it was probably one of my favorite conversations I've had. So make sure you really share the crap out of this one. A lot of people need it. Now, let's get into that conversation. All right, guys, so we have Liz Lambert here, and, Liz, I'm going to let her give a brief intro on who she is, what she does, where she's from, and then we're going to kind of get into her story on how she got to where she is today, fitness, coach, life, everything. But Liz, give a brief intro for the people so they know who we're talking to today.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? So my name is Liz Lambert. I live in Cleveland, Ohio. I am a transplant. I'm originally from Kansas City, Kansas. That's where I grew up and was raised. Have been in Cleveland now for 7 years. And this is a city that I didn't think I would ever end up in, but it was a city that completely saved my life, and basically changed the whole trajectory of my life. I'm a mom of two. I have a 5-year-old, almost 6-year-old, and an 11-month-old now too, which is absolutely insane.
How the hell did that
I don't even, I look at her, I'm like, how are you about to be one? Did I just bring you home from the hospital?
I feel like you just announced that you were pregnant.
Right? I was like, this whole year has just blink of an eye, it's just gone. So yeah, I'm a mom of two, wife to my best friend of 6 years. And I'm the director of coaching for Hidden Summit. So what I get to do is I get to empower my coaches to be the best that they can be and lead by example and just bring as much value as possible to themselves, because they all have something great to offer this world. So that's just really my role, is to empower them and just to make sure that all of our clients are supported. So that's currently what I do. But that is not my background at all.
Yeah.
So.
You're also a badass CrossFit athlete.
Thank you. It's been new. I've been in CrossFit since 2019. I took all of 2020 off, I think, as most of the world did during that time. And then the box that I go to now opened up in 2021. So I joined it right as they opened, and I've been there since. And I never thought that I'd be the athlete that I am today, but oh God, do I love throwing down some heavy weights.
Let me tell you, I think everybody who now does CrossFit was one of those people who was like, CrossFit's stupid. I would never do CrossFit, because that was totally me. I'd be like talking shit about CrossFit when I would be signing people up for the gym, be like, oh yeah, you don't want to do that fake pull-up shit. Now I'm like, kipping is hard.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's so funny because I didn't really know what CrossFit was before I even signed up for like the first 6-week free challenge that I did in 2019. I was like, oh, cool, a 6-week challenge. Like, I need to get into a gym. I was in a really bad spot with just custody exchange and all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, I need to take care of myself. And that's kind of really when my story started this time around. But I was like, I don't know what CrossFit is. I just see people lifting weights. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then I got into it. I'm like, oh, there are some like people that are like really, really into this. Like, oh, the CrossFit games, like, oh, damn, like that is a whole level that I was not expecting at all. And then I really got into it. I'm like, now I see why people do CrossFit.
Yeah. I had this conversation with my client yesterday, and she went on vacation for 14 days, and She came back on Thursday late night and went immediately Friday morning back to class. And everybody was like, "Why are you here? You just came home." She's like, "I needed you guys." And I'm like, "Yeah, CrossFit's definitely not a cult."
Nope.
Like, definitely not.
Nope. We are, but we're not.
Totally a cult. Yeah.
We just like to have fun, listen to some raunchy music and just throw down some weights.
Yeah, I
So
mean, there's nothing better, you know?
yeah, absolutely.
So fill me in on kind of how so now you're a coach of coaches. Before you were a coach, how did you kind of get into the coaching space and fitness in general? Because I know that that's kind of where a lot of people really transform their lives.
Yeah. So really my fitness journey started when I was in college. So I went to Kansas State University and I was a bartender and a waitress in the bar district. And one of my regulars was a personal trainer, and I didn't want to work out with him. Like, he was the first person. I'm like, I see what shit you do. You're freaking crazy. Like, I don't want to do this. And he's like, no, like, just come in. I'll give you a free week trial. Like, see what you think. If you like it, then you're awesome. If you don't, then you tried, right? That's all I ask you to do. So I was like, okay, fine. So I went and did it. And I was hooked ever since. And he was a wrestling coach, but he trained people more like hit style, low weight, high intensity. And it completely changed my body. It changed my mindset. And he always called me his athlete. He's like, "You're my athlete. Like, that's my girl. You're like, you're just going after it all the time." And so, like, he's like, one day he's like, "You could probably do this." And I'm like, no. And I'm like, as I'm telling my personal trainer who does this for a living, like, I don't think I could do that. Like, that's just, I need to be, at a 9 to 5 job, job security, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, no, just think about it. He's like, you've got the passion for it. And I see what you're doing and how you just encourage people that were working out with that. It's like their first day. Just think about it. And I was like, okay, fine. But then I went to like my job, my restaurant job. I managed a multi-million-dollar restaurant right out of college. And I started going back to the gym because I was like, I need to find a home gym and everything like that. And that's actually when I met my son's dad, and we became gym buddies at the time. Like, that's how our relationship started. And then during that time, it became really toxic, and I didn't notice it at first. It took me about 6, maybe 7 months to realize like how controlling that became and how negative the gym became in my world, because it was like, you're doing this for attention, you're doing this for the looks. Like, I was starting to do a bikini show competition, then realized like that just wasn't for me. I liked food too much, and like I just didn't want to limit that. And so I stopped going to the gym for a while, and then throughout that relationship, it just became like I would go to the gym and it was like, well, why are you doing that? So it just became a really negative point in my life. And so I just stopped. And then when I ended my relationship for the first time, I went back to the gym because it was like, that was my happy place. That was where I wanted to be. And that's where the people that I could relate to were at. And so I went back, got back into the relationship because I found out I was pregnant, and then stopped going to the gym again, because again, it was a negative connotation in this world. And then when I finally ended that relationship for good, that's when I found the CrossFit gym here in Cleveland. And the coach that I had there was like, "You're really good at this. Like, you're a natural." And so I just went all in, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the mental challenge. I loved the physical challenge. And then as I started sharing my journey, because I was also really nervous about sharing my story on social media, because even with that relationship, the social media aspect was very controlling.
Yeah.
And so I was really nervous about putting my story out there, because I was in a nasty custody battle. I was nervous that like things were going to be used against me in court. I was nervous that he was going to use that against me to like get custody of my son or anything like that. But really all I was doing was taking care of myself and trying to be the best mom and the best person, because like I am a person outside of being a mom and being a wife. But as I started sharing my story and just like little snippets of like, this is what my workout was, or what I was taking like post workout, or my pre-workout dry scoops, or anything like that, like I started getting more people out, like more people started asking me more questions. And more people started wanting to work out with me, or they wanted me to help them with nutrition. And I'm like, well, I'm not certified in nutrition, but like, this is what I'm doing. So I just started sharing more about it. And that's really was like, maybe this thing that my first trainer told me about could be something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a coach who helped me dial things in 2020, when that's when I kind of gained a bunch of weight back. And the way that her approach was, it was like creating the lifestyle and not being restrictive and just learning how your body responds to food. And I was like, like, I really like this. Like, I definitely could do something like this. But then it was like, no, like you need to do your 9 to 5 job. You just
Mm.
that could just be a passion maybe down the road. Just don't think about it. But then I started doing it more. And then I
Yeah.
started doing it more. And then more conversations were happening, and people were reaching out to me in my DMs, and people were reaching out to me in person. And I'm just like, told my husband, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna just say fuck it. I'm gonna do it. So I went and got my CPT from ISSA, and I did that first, and then I got my PN level 1 cert, and then I started getting more into CrossFit, so that I got my CrossFit level 1 certification, and it just started building from there. And it was like, oh my God, like I absolutely love this. And when I transformed my whole body, that's when really I was like taking on clients. And it wasn't a lot at first. It was just like some friends and some people through social media. Um, but it was just because I was very honest and transparent. I'm not going to tell somebody to do something that I've never done before. I'm like, hey, I'm not training for a bikini competition. I'm not training for a physique competition. Like, I'm just training for life, because I want to be the badass mom, and I want to lead, and I want to be here long term. And that's really what I want to teach people to do as well, as no restrictions, no diets, no bullshit. Um, and so I was working for Coca-Cola at this time. And the gym that I went to was an Anytime Fitness. The owner was actually one of my husband's customers. So my husband is a sales rep. And he was like, hey, I've seen your wife in our gym, and she really just, her body has changed a whole lot this year. Would she be interested in training clients at our gym? And that just opened the door to be like, hey, I'm going to give you this opportunity. You can quit your job. And so I did. I quit my corporate America job and went all in on personal training. And then I found Hidden Summit and started coaching people more online. And really it was like, I like this dream that I didn't think I would make a reality is now my reality. And like, I really fucking love this. So I'm going all in. And that's really where really the coaching kind of started. Was really, it started in 2019 on and off,
Mm-hmm.
more consistently in 2021 into 2022. And then I've been an online coach now for the last 2.5 years.
Fuck,
Um,
that's such a good
yeah.
story. You know why it's such a good story? Because it highlights so many different things. One, it highlights the fact that like when you were first getting into fitness and working with a personal trainer and he was saying you should try this, you were just like, no, that's not me. That's not like I'm thinking probably in your mind, like, that's not possible for me to do because I have to have this stable job and this is just what is told for us to do. And then fast forward to now where it's something that you're actually doing and succeeding in.
Yeah. And it's crazy too, because that first conversation happened 10 years ago. So 10 years, like that, you look at it on paper, it doesn't seem like a long time, but you look back, you're like, holy crap, like that conversation was 10 years ago. And like, even when I do our weekend workouts for Hidden Summit, and I always do a finisher, it's to honor that first personal trainer that I had, because that's what he had always had me do. And he's no longer with us at this time, but like he played such an intricate part of me finally just saying, like, you just gotta go for it. Like, you don't have to do the things that your parents tell you to do or your family tells you that you have to do because this is what generations have done before. Like, I'm the first person in my family to follow the fitness lifestyle. So I kind of broke that norm, and
Yeah.
it feels really cool to do it. And I love giving people the second chance, because I was given a second chance through fitness and nutrition, and just having people believe in me before I believed in myself to take that step.
Yeah, and that's really the power of a coach is like a lot of people think, oh, like I'm a personal trainer, I count reps, I do this. No, you fucking literally change and impact lives. Like to the point where 10 years later, we're having this conversation about how this one trainer impacted Liz's life and completely changed it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just been a whirlwind.
Yeah, and it's like the evolution of your body, but also I know the evolution of your mind, because you started off fitness for kind of like those wrong reasons, right? You wanted to look a particular way, you wanted the attention and things like that. And I feel like so many people kind of get into fitness for the wrong reason, and then it leads to them quitting because they can't sustain it because they don't have a good driving factor behind it.
Yeah.
So, for example, some people are like, I hate the way that I look, so I hate myself, so then I'm going to work out. Probably
Mhm.
not going to last, versus I just want to become a better version of myself, and you're probably going to last a lot longer.
Absolutely. And the crazy thing, Caitlin, too, about this is like whenever I post my transformation pictures from like 2017 to now, like I was I guess what they call like skinny fat then,
We all were.
skinny fat then. And then I gained 90 pounds in my first pregnancy with Bodhi, to then I was overweight. I lost the weight, but I wasn't happy with where I was. Cause like, cool, like I lost the baby fat, like that's great, but like, who am I? Because I was still in the thick of this custody battle
Yeah.
and courts. And then it was like, and then I gained the weight back during 2020, to then, you know, I got the best physique that I didn't even think was possible. And I was heavier then than I was in 2017.
That's the crazy part people don't think about.
Yeah. And, and then it was like, okay. And then I got pregnant with Laura Jane right after that. And I only gained like 28 pounds a second pregnancy. But even then, like where I'm at now, I'm only 15 pounds down from when I went to have her versus now. But even then, like we're living the thick life is what we say, like we're thicker than a Snickers sometimes. But I love it because it's like, again, my body has gone through so many transformations over the last 6 years.
Yeah.
So it's like, but I have a really healthy relationship with myself, and I'm so confident with who I am because I fought really, really fucking hard to get here, and a lot of internal battles and a lot of people telling me that like you're not worth it or you're selfish or like why are you doing these things, just questioning every motive that I had. But it's like, but I have so much more to give this world, and I'm tired of somebody telling me I'm bad, I'm selfish, I'm worthless, all of these things. Like, okay, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And I have. And like, I think that's the really empowering thing is like, even when in those low moments, I was like doubting myself or, having that internal dialogue, it's like, shut the fuck up for a second.
Yep.
You got this. You've done this before. Like, why are you second guessing yourself? Just take that first step and just fucking go.
Yeah. And
Just,
I think so many people forget to remind themselves how far they've come. Like you fought fucking hard to get to where you are today. So celebrate where you are today versus where you were, and allow that to continue to push you to get more.
yeah. And I think also too, another part of it is in this fitness industry, right? Especially when you go on social media, you see all of these people who have great physiques, who are in the gym for 3 hours a day. And like, that's their job. But also like, what about the parents that only have 30 minutes or an hour to prioritize themselves for a little bit? Like, those are the people that like I want to empower even more, because as a mom of two, like this whole year has been like pivot, insert Ross meme here, and from friends, like pivot, like that's this whole year, because I never know how my kids are going to sleep at night. I never know if they're going to wake up at the ass crack of dawn, or if they're going to actually allow me that like hour in the morning to kind of set the tone for the day. But then even too, like the beauty of this job and the career that we have is we have the flexibility to be able to go and prioritize ourselves. But even for the parents that like have the 9 to 5 job, okay, you can still take care of you. We just have to look at your schedule and say, what can we make work? Because just like if your kid has an appointment or somewhere that they need to be, we honor that, but we don't do the same thing for ourselves. So why is that? And it's because society puts this high pressure on parents to do everything for their kids so that they can have a better life. But like, cool, like our kids can have a better life than we had as kids, but we can also have a better life if we prioritize ourselves, even if it's just for 10 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day. Like that goes a long way too.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the moms and dads that I've worked with, the biggest thing that they feel is like that guilt. Like I can't give time to me because I'm not paying attention to my kids then. Like what would you say to somebody who struggles with that? Because I know that so many people do.
Yeah. Your kids are always watching. Um, and my son would go to the CrossFit gym with me when he wasn't in daycare. Or I even made it a point, like if he was in school, like I would go to the gym for 45 minutes before I'd go pick him up. But I would tell him what I'm doing. And then even too, when he saw me working out, like even now it's almost 6 years old, he'll ask me, "Hey mom, are you going to the gym today?" "Yeah." "Cool. Get after it." "Okay, cool." But it's like they see what we're doing to take care of ourselves, and then that carries into how they take care of themselves. Just like how we nutritionally feed ourselves, same thing for the kids, because I think explaining what you're doing, they actually take in a lot more than they express. And as they get older, it makes sense. Like even one day randomly, my son was like, "Hey mom, we're going to do a challenge." And I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "I'm going to beat you in push-ups." And I'm like, "Okay, challenge accepted." you know?
Easy win.
Yeah, but it's like, I would never think that my kid would ever do that. But it's because he's seen me work out. I've brought him to the gym community. I have told him in the grocery store why I'm eating so much protein, or, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, why didn't you eat your chicken?" "Oh, I didn't want to." "Okay, well, do you know what this does for you?" And it's just educating him now, because I'm like, "Hey, I'm wanting you to try things. And I'm showing you things because long term, this is really going to benefit your overall health. And if you want to be an athlete, you want to go do taekwondo or football or soccer or swimming or whatever sport you want to do, you have to properly fuel yourself." So I want to make sure that you just have an understanding of what I'm bringing to this table. And really simplifying it has helped so much with my relationship with him, explaining what I am doing, and even to him randomly just being like, "Mom, I'm really proud of you." Melt my freaking heart. Like,
That's amazing.
okay, I'll keep doing it. But it's for the parents, it's really just, no matter what, your kids are priority, but we have to take care of ourselves so we can be the best parent for them.
Yeah.
You're not, it might seem selfish in that moment, but I guarantee long term, it's the least selfish thing that we could do.
Yeah, and the reality is like the habits and behaviors that they grow up with are based on what you've taught them and what you've shown them.
Yeah.
And think about like so many people now, like in our generation, have such messed up relationships with food because our parents just didn't know any better.
Yeah. And not just that. Well, I think even too, like, I think of when like my mom started losing weight, she was doing
Hmm.
curves, and it
Yeah,
was,
my mom would do Atkins, all that bullshit.
yeah, it was like curves, it was low
Weight Watchers.
carbs, all these, yeah. And I was like, and looking back, I'm like, okay, like I understand the concept, but like it really wasn't the healthiest, right? But even now, it's like, because my mom started her weight loss journey when I was in high school, that led me to be like, okay, like I know that my family history is not the best genetic wise. So how can I prolong that for as long as I possibly can? And even to like being that role model now for my kids, because even them, they both don't have the best genetics either.
Hmm.
Um, even with like two different dads, like there are genetics that could come into place, but I'm not trying to think of that. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
cool, like what habits can I help you build now, so if it does happen, we're prepared.
Right. A lot of people think like genetics play like the role, right? They're like people who are saying like obesity is genetic, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
But what it really is I like to use the analogy like genetics could load the gun, however, lifestyle is going to pull the trigger. So that's up to you.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, it saying no to certain situations too, I think no is a complete sentence, or no thank
Hmm.
you. Um, and this is something that I've really worked on, because I lived with my in-laws for a while, and I'm very grateful that we did that. But also too, my lifestyle was so different from theirs. So even too, when it came to like family dinners during my weight loss journey, I was like, hey, I'm going to eat with you guys, but I made my food separate because this is what I'm working towards. So even vocalizing that was really hard because I'm like, I don't want them to think like I'm ungrateful or I'm not, you know, I don't want to eat their food. It's not that. It's just, hey, I know your guys' nutritional habits. I'm going to let you guys do what you want to do because this is your life, your control, but this is how I can control this. And even then, that's when I lost all the weight, was when I was living with them during the COVID time. And they saw it. And even now she'll be like, hey, like, this is what we're doing for dinner. Does this work for your goals that you're working towards? And I'm like, I really appreciate the fact that you're asking me this, right? So again, it's just being vocal and not being afraid of saying, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm doing. I'll still be present.
Yeah.
I also might bring some food with me just so I can stay on the plan that I'm working on right now with my coach.
Yeah, people have a big fear of judgment. Like I asked a question on Facebook and I put like, hey, what's your biggest fear with starting a fitness journey? And a lot of people voiced like fear of like what other people are going to think of me, fear of what my family's going to say, fear of like family meals, or just fear of judgment when I go to the gym. People are so afraid of what other people might think of them that they forget to actually live their own life.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that too, because I lived in such, I don't want to say denial, but I was definitely afraid because
Mhm.
I'm first generation American. My family is all from, my mom's side of the family is from India. And so cultural differences played a huge factor. Like I remember when I first like got my ears pierced or I colored my hair for the first time, my grandmother was like, why did you do this? Or,
What's wrong
or
with me?
wearing a specific article of clothing, like, why are you doing this? So now to me, like when I started getting muscular and lifting heavy weights, it was like, well, why are you doing this? Like ladies are supposed to be dainty and like, all those things. And I'm like, but that's just not me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care if I'm the rebel of the family and I do things differently. Like I was the first one to get a tattoo. Did I hide it for a while? Yes.
Yeah.
But
Of
like
course.
I was nervous because my grandparents meant a lot to me, but I also was like, I'm not gonna allow cultural differences to hold me back from who I want to be and do the things I want to do. It's totally different. They're all in the medical field. They're all like really freaking smart people, living the nice lifestyle and everything. But I'm like, you know what? I am so fulfilled with everything that I do. And I've got some really great kids and I have a really supportive husband. And we're just, we're living life to the absolute fullest. And that's really all I ask. And even to like, before my grandfather passed away, it was a conversation of, he's like, I've been sitting back and watching everything that you've done over the last 10 years. He's like, you're kind of my role model because you went against the norm. You did the things that you wanted to do. You stood up for yourself. You advocated for yourself and you just never gave up. And I was like that hit me so hard because my grandfather is such a big person and
Yeah.
know him all over the world. And to hear him say that, I was like, I don't think you've ever told your kids that. I don't think you ever told any of your other grandkids that. But for you to say that to me, holy crap.
Yeah. There's
Like,
something amazing about just pushing outside the norm to be able to live the life that you actually want, not for anybody else.
and just to not be afraid. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you have to do things scared, but if your heart's pulling you in that direction, there's a reason why.
Yep. Yep.
And you might question yourself the whole time, but if you want it, you have to go for it and you have to fight for it. And like that's why I share my story as much as I do, is because like 6 years ago, if you would have told me that I was an online health and nutrition coach, I would have laughed in your face.
Fucking.
Like, oh
Yep.
yeah, okay, cool. Like that didn't really happen. But because I left a toxic environment that was holding me down, neglecting me, you know, mentally and emotionally abusive, to then like figuring out how to raise a kid, to then being in the successful relationship with my husband now, and taking those steps of like living paycheck to paycheck and doing the things that I thought I needed to do. Like I had to do that in order to get here,
Yeah.
because in the back of my mind is like, I want to do the things that my heart desires. That's why you and I are here
Yeah.
today.
100%. Now, when it comes to like your mindset and everything, because I feel like you have like such a fucking powerful mindset. And I know that it wasn't always this way. I mean, obviously, like we even hear your story and it's like it's definitely evolved. Did you find that fitness was the thing that evolved it, or did you find that like you had to do some soul searching on your own to kind of strengthen that?
Definitely had to do some soul searching. Uh,
Hmm.
Fitness helped because in fitness, especially when you're going for those heavy lifts, like you have to talk yourself into it, and you have to got to be your own hype man. Like, yeah, I got this. We can do this. Let's fucking go, and like last set, best set. Let's do this. But the mental side, like I went to therapy,
Hmm.
and um, I had a therapist for a while, and then she moved, and so then I was in limbo for a minute until a new therapist came in. And so during that time is really, really like when I took matters into my own hand, and I was reading some really hard books. And I read books that really I don't think I was really ready for, but it was
Hmm.
like talking about shame, talking about vulnerability, talking about getting uncomfortable, and really just saying, okay, like if somebody is questioning you, is it because of what you're doing or is it because of their own insecurity? And so, like, writing those questions down and like journaling about it, it was like, the people that are supportive never question anything that I have to do. The people that are negative and create a scene or create conflict, it's because they're not comfortable with me finding my own happiness or finding going the direction that I want to go. Like they're
Hmm.
within their control. And it really like everything started to fall into place. And so it was like a lot of hard conversations with my therapist, a lot of vulnerability, a lot of reading some Brene Brown books because she is the queen of freaking shame and vulnerability and like all of those,
Yeah.
you
What was the
know.
one that you recommended to me the other day? I wrote it
It was
down.
called I Thought It Was Me, but it wasn't. And that book, I cried. Like that was the very
Yeah.
first
I
book.
know it's gonna hit. I know it.
It's but it's because like when I read that, it was like right after I got full custody of my son.
Yeah.
And and my mom recommended it to me, and I called her like, what the fuck are you doing?
What's wrong with you?
I was not prepared for this.
Comes with a warning label, like gosh.
But ever since I read that book, my life took off.
Yeah,
It's so crazy when you're like, yeah, this one book completely changed my life. That book changed the whole view of my life.
that's so amazing too. Shit.
And, but it really was like, you have to reflect on, well, is this what I want or is this what somebody else is telling me that I want?
Hmm.
If it's that what they're telling me that I want, like, okay, cool. Like, why does it benefit them? Like, it should benefit me because this is my life, my journey, my wants, my needs. But if it's for my husband, okay, like obviously like he has to be a factor into that, right? But if it's not, okay, like what's in it for you?
Yep.
And so that's really when creating certain boundaries came up and
Hmm.
allowing my core people to come in and know the full story. So like my core people went from like this to this
Yep. Yep.
during that healing journey. And there was nothing wrong with that because the people
Hmm.
that are in it with you won't ever leave.
Yeah, and those who matter won't mind what you do with your life unless like you're being completely like toxic and shit. But those who mind don't fucking matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's also very interesting as you start succeeding,
Yeah, it is.
people that watch you and are supporting you, but they watch you, they don't say anything. One day they'll come up and they'll be like, hey, I see everything that you're doing and I'm really proud of you.
Yeah.
Where did
It's
you come
crazy
from?
when that happens too. Like I had one girl actually from high school who used to bully me in high school. And she literally like messaged me on Facebook like a couple months ago and was like, "Hey, I fucking love watching your videos. Like they're so inspiring and motivating. Keep doing what you're doing." And I was like, "That's crazy." Like it's insane how life works when people, grow up and they become more mature and when you're just leading by example and showing people what's possible, who you inspire without even knowing.
Yeah. And I think too, it's not putting a filter on who you are either.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing because that's the downfall of part of our job with social
Oh
media,
yeah.
like
Oh
trying
yeah.
to stand out. And you're like, well, this reel went viral or this went viral. And like, I want to do something like that. But it's like, but that's not me. Like,
Yep.
I'm going to tell my story and I'm going to do what I want. And like, that's the biggest thing that I advocate, not only for myself, but even for like the coaches on our team is like, I just want you guys to be you because you are so valuable and you are so impactful in your own ways. We're not catering to the masses here. We're catering to specific people that could really benefit from our stories and what we have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is really what's important when we tell our stories because, hey, there is no filter here. This is
Yep.
what I experienced. This is how I got out of it. This is what has happened since then. And
Yeah.
we're just getting started
Yeah.
too,
I feel
right?
like that's a mistake that so many online coaches make as well. They like focus so much on putting all this like valuable scientific content and trying to sound like the smartest person in the room instead of just trying to actually connect with whoever's on the other side of that screen. And by connecting with them, showing that, you know, you've been through shit too and showing them some vulnerability, not being like the person who just cries all the time, but showing them like, here's what happened, cool, but here's what I've done from that and where I'm going now. And here's what you can do too. It inspires people. And then they see you as a human, not as just another online fitness robot who doesn't understand anybody else but macros and fitness.
Right. You know, I think that also sets us apart what we do at Hidden Summit is because the clients that we work with, like we get to know them on a really deep personal level.
Oh
Like
yeah.
like all of my girls, like I know that I had to offload a bunch of girls to some of our coaches and they're doing phenomenal
Yeah.
too. But like even then, like we walked through so much life together and knowing every little bit, like even the current girls that I help right now, like they'll call me randomly or text me randomly about, you know, about life stuff. It's not even about coaching, but it's like we've finally have surpassed that coach client relationship to now where it's like, I'm part of your life for good now. And I
Yeah.
love that. But like that again, that's we see you as the whole person
Mm-hmm.
and we believe in you way more than you believe in yourself when you first come in. And that's why we're so good at what we do. And
Yeah.
our girls and clients see success long term is because, hey, like, yes, we're online health and nutrition coaches, but like we're also helping you create the lifestyle that you want.
Yeah. It's like a mind, body, soul transformation is how I like to think of it because it really is like you can go onto fucking Google and you can go type into Chat GPT and be like, give me a workout program. Here's my goals. Here's my exact parameters. And then they'll spit out something beautiful, but it doesn't work if you're not in the mindset to actually do the work and do it consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes you're not really ready for all the work that is about to
Yeah.
come, but like
Correct.
if you've got that support system behind you and you've got the coach that is like, hey, I want to know about you. Here's my story too, so we can build some trust. I want you to trust me that I've got your back 120% through this whole journey. And there's got to be honesty and transparency because that's how I learned and how I got here. It's because the first
Mhm.
coach we hired, they helped us, or whatever coach impacted you the most. It was honesty and transparency and vulnerability and saying, like, hey, we're going to do some hard shit together, but I've always got your back. And you're
Yeah.
never going to fall on your face and you'll never go back to where you were.
Yep. I like to say to my clients, like, I'll never expect perfection because perfect is prison and fuck perfect. Consistency is what delivers results. But the only thing that I do expect is honesty and effort. So if you can give your best effort and you can always be honest with me and transparent and vulnerable with me, then we're going to go really far.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I stand behind that message too. So
Yes. Geez,
yeah,
this has been such a great conversation, Liz. Like, I appreciate you for coming on, sharing your story, but also sharing so much valuable insight from what you've been through and what you've learned to everybody who's listening, because this is going to be a really impactful episode.
I appreciate you asking me to be on here and allowing me to share my story a little bit more. It's crazy because again, like 5 years ago, I would not have shared my story like this,
Oh, yeah, I know.
but here we are, and I'm grateful to be able to share my story and for those to listen, and and I hope it lands for certain people, and for those that it does, like I'm always here to have those conversations. And I know you are too, Caitlin. And I'm just really grateful to be able to do this.
Yeah, and I'll put all of Liz's information down below so you can follow her on social media. But before you go, Liz, if there's one thing that you would say to somebody who's in a position where they want to make a change in their life, but they're afraid to change, what's one thing that you would tell that person?
Never be afraid to ask questions.
Ooh, that's a good one. Too many people?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with asking questions. There's no dumb questions. There's no stupid questions. But if it's sitting heavy on your heart and you want to know more about it, just ask.
Damn right. And you can ask either one of us or anybody who's impactful in your life. But guys, thank you for listening. Go follow Liz and do one thing today that's going to take you one step closer to where you want to be.
Thanks, y'all.